What's going on? My name is Matt Parker and today is my absolute pleasure to be checking out this vintage Rickenbacker 3001 bass. Now the 3001 or the 3000 series is an interesting range from Rickenbacker. Made between 1975 and 1984, this bass features a lot of similarities with other Rickenbackers of the time, so like the 4000/4001, 4003, but it does have some key differences. The 3000 range, which was the 3000 and the 3001, were the short scale and long scale versions of each other. This is the 3001, which is the Rickenbacker full scale instrument, which means it's 33.5-inch scale length. The 3000 is a shorter scale instrument and featured a slab body, whereas the 3001 features this kind of more contoured look, which is really comfy against the waist and just feels great. One of the first things you'll notice is that it's got a single pickup. Now the controls are quite interesting. You can see it's got the 3 control knobs for this single pickup, which is a volume, a bass cut and a treble cut. In some of the literature when these came out, these were kind of marketed as active, but they're not, they're passive controls. But yeah, there's no boost function on them. It's simply a bass cut and a treble cut with 2 different capacitors in the circuit. Looking to the bridge, we can see it's got that classic Rickenbacker bridge with the adjustable mute. Now, in this particular example, you will see that the foam has degraded over time, which is really common with vintage Rickenbackers. It's quite easy to replace, but this one is all original. But usually what would happen is you could just use the thumb wheels to bring this mute up as and when. So if you wanted like a kind of a plunkier pick attack, for example, you can just bring that mute up, or finger styles as well. Now, like a lot of Rickenbackers, the body is made of maple. But unlike a lot of Rickenbackers, if we spin it around, you can see it's actually a bolt-on neck. Now, most Rickenbackers are either a through neck, so the neck is like one piece which runs the whole way through the body, or in some of the early 4000s, it was a set neck. But we do see on occasion Rickenbacker go into a bolt-on neck design, and this is one of those instances. Moving to the back of the neck, we can see it's a maple neck with a walnut skunk stripe, and this runs the whole way through to the headstock, which is very common on Rickenbacker instruments, and you can see it's got a 2 either side headstock design. Now looking at the front of the headstock design, you can actually see it mimics more of the kind of 360 and 330 guitar headstock designs. The 4000 series has a cresting wave headstock, which is slightly different. Looking at the fingerboard, you can see in classic Rickenbacker fashion, it's this gorgeous lacquered rosewood fingerboard. And in my opinion, this is one of the things that makes Rickenbackers sound so clanky, because I definitely think that this lacquering of the fingerboard is quite thick and it adds a level of brightness to the tone, which Rickenbackers are renowned for. Now, even though it's a fairly small body, because you've got so much maple in the form of the neck and the body, it is quite heavy. This one comes over 10 pounds. So, it's just something to be mindful of. It's not an absolute boat anchor, but it does feel very 70s in terms of weight. It feels kind of similar and on par to my fretless Precision I had, or a lot of the 70s jazz basses that I've owned as well. Now, the 3001 is quite a rare bass. You don't see many coming up for sale. In fact, I haven't seen another one on eBay or Reverb for over a year. And in fact, I've only ever seen 2 come up for sale, this being one of them. Now, because it's a rare bass, you don't see this in the hands of that many players. But some notable players would be bands like Arctic Monkeys. Early Blondie was recorded on a 3001, I believe. And I think early Primal Scream as well was on the shorter scale 3000. Now, I absolutely love Rickenbackers. I've had quite a few, and to be honest, they are one of my favourite basses, so I'm probably going to be a little bit biased towards this, but believe me when I say this is actually a great playing instrument. The action's really low, the neck is super comfy for me, it's quite thick front to back, it's like a good chunky Rickenbacker neck. It feels more like a fat P bass, to be honest. And in terms of the sound that you get out of this instrument, it's very much like a cross between a P bass and a Rickenbacker. It's a bit more like an angry P bass, and I think that's partially due to this center pickup placement. But you can coax some of that Rickenbacker clang in with the use of the kind of bass cut. Now, I'm sure you've had enough of me waffling on about this 3001. Let's get down to some tones. So there we have it, the Rickenbacker 3001 bass. I really love this bass. I love it because they're so unusual. You don't see many of them and it just plays so well. And honestly, I find that Rickenbackers of this era generally do play really well. Now, this one is listed as a 1978, although looking at the serial number, it may be a 1976. There is some conflicting information, but either way, it's certainly a mid to late 70s example. Now, one of the great things about the 3001 is just how balanced it is. As you can see, there's no real neck dive. It's sat on my knee. It's doing a great job. I'm not holding it. And it's in wonderful condition, really. Obviously, there are some signs of age, but, you know, given the fact that this is a vintage instrument, it's in great condition. It's super rare. You're probably not going to see another one at like a pub gig or a function. So if you want to be stopped by all the bass players you ever play for at gigs, this is certainly one that you want to check out. If I was being overly critical, and to be honest, this is a non-issue for me, it is just that it's slightly heavy. But, you know, going into that with that in mind, there's so many pros to this bass versus that kind of semi-con, if it even is that. The tonal variety on tap, the way it makes you feel, you just kind of really want to dig in with a pick and kind of like, you know, coax that kind of punky nature out of it. It's just such a cool bass, and as you can see, this one is in a stunning autumn glow finish. To be honest, I've really enjoyed my time with this bass. It plays great, it sounds great, and it really gives off kind of a rocky vibe. It makes you want to play with a pick and just kind of add a bit of grit to your tone and really kind of, you know, like coax some Lemmy-esque tones out of it. If you're a bass player who likes something a bit different, you know, you don't want to just go to a gig with a P bass, this is definitely one you should think about checking out. Plays great, sounds great, and I hope you've enjoyed watching. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to my friends at Vintage Bass Room for sending over this bass. You should definitely go check out their website if you're in the market for something cool, unusual, and vintage. As always, I've been Matt Parker. Please remember to like and subscribe because it really helps me grow the channel. Until next time, I'll see you soon.